This year, Maine is quietly celebrating the 20th anniversary of a truce some thought might never be achieved. The battle over workers' comp raged through the 1980s and early 90s, even triggering a state government shutdown for 3 weeks in 1991, when reforms were linked to passage of the state budget. But thanks to recommendations from a Blue Ribbon Commission in 1992, a new system began in January 1993. Since then, average workers' comp rates have declined about 50%. In Maine's logging industry, the savings are even more dramatic. In 2011, workers' comp cost $5.9 million less than it would have in 1993. $1.2 million in savings for conventional logging and $4.7 million for mechanical logging. Mike St. Peter, director of Maine's Certified Logging Professional Program, explains how loggers got safer and workers' comp rates dropped as much as 69%.
I think it's safe to say that the current mechanical logging CLP rate, certified rate, is probably the lowest there is in the country right now. The certified logger program was initiated back in 1991 because of exorbitant workers' comp rates, and the folks within the industry got together and said, can we affect these high rates? And basically it was, they got state government, the insurance industry, logging contractors, and forest products groups to get together and come up with a solution. And that solution was promoting safety training and education. In the last 5 or 6 years, we've put through about 100 new individuals per year, new to the program. And then we retrain between odd and even numbered years, approximately 15 to 1,600. The industry's involved in the last 30 years. There's more mechanical harvesting. And one of the big driving forces for that initially was the high cost of workers' comp for the conventional loggers. I think what's interesting is that there's still a number of individuals that are working in the industry that haven't either participated or maintained their certification. Traditionally, logging injuries have always been above the average of all other private sector occupations. Since about 97, 98, Maine logging has outperformed or had less injuries than the average of the Maine private sector occupations. And you'll get occasion where one year you'll get a spike, as in 2009, is that 2009? But overall, the trend has been that Maine logging has outperformed the private sector. And that's based on a couple different factors. One being, we trust that all the safety initiatives that have been promoted, not only through CLP, but companies that make initiatives to improve health and safety. Certainly mechanization is a big contributor to lowering the injury rates for the whole logging sector, because there's less people under the canopy. They're all in enclosed cabs, so that certainly had an effect on the injury rates. But training and education, improved technology have all contributed to lower rates, injury rates. Here we have the history of the workers' comp rates for conventional, certified, and non-certified rates. We started tracking this back in 1993, and as you can see, both the certified and non-certified rates were between 40 and 50% of payroll. And as the certified rate developed, we see that there was a marked improvement between certified and non-certified. In the conventional sector, since 2005, '05, the rates have pretty much been the same. And the reason for that is there's virtually no longer any insured conventional loggers that are not certified, that haven't been through the training. There's a number of independent loggers out there that are certified and non-certified, but they're not reflected in these workers' comp rates because they're not on a payroll. Now here, this graph shows the workers' comp costs for the mechanical sector, tracking back to 1993. If you look in 1993, the mechanical class code was right around $30 per hundred, and throughout the years it's dropped, but overall has pretty much stabilized. Now we're seeing a little bit of an uptick now in the uncertified category, but since '05, I think it's the graph illustrates here that the mechanical certified loggers have outperformed the non-certified loggers. Well, their safety rate is better, which translates into lower costs. We don't actively have training and education in the trucking sector in terms of CLP, although we try to promote safety for those logging companies that have their own trucking entities or trucking divisions within their logging companies. But this is an interesting graphic in that in the trucking, log and chip trucking was always included in the general trucking class code. Trucking class code meaning all other companies that have trucking. Back in 2008, when we had the real crunch with increased fuel costs and profit margins getting slimmer and slimmer, the industry was able to convince the Bureau of Insurance to allow log and chip truck operators the lowest trucking rate that's available for general trucking. Since 2011, the log and chip trucking sector has been on its own, which means that, based on their performance for their sector, for their group, they're generating their own workers' comp rate now based on log and chip truck experience. And what we're seeing here is a little bit of a concern because there's been a steady increase from 2011, 12, and 13 in the trucking rate, and I think that's something that the industry should take note of. That now that we're a smaller pool because we've separated ourselves from general trucking, that the rates are more subject to volatility, either up or down, based on the number of injuries that are in that particular group.